You keep replaying the conversation afterward, trying to figure out why you suddenly feel so heavy. That's not random, and it's not because you're too sensitive or bad at people. Some people leave you tired because the conversation was never actually shared emotional space. It was pressure, management, extraction, confusion, guilt, performance, or a quiet fight for control. And once you see the pattern, you stop blaming your personality for their behavior anymore. By the end, you'll know the 5 signs and what to do immediately in real life. Because feeling drained after every call, visit, meeting, or text thread slowly changes you inside. It makes you doubt your memory, soften your limits, and brace before they even appear again. You start editing yourself around them, then wonder why you never feel relaxed. Most people call that stress, but sometimes it's your nervous system catching manipulation first and early. I think a lot of us learn to ignore that signal early. We were trained to be polite, understanding, available, and endlessly fair to unfair people. So instead of asking why they feel so entitled, you ask why you feel exhausted. The first sign is simple, but people miss it because it sounds normal at first. They make every conversation about managing their feelings, even when the situation is clearly about yours. You bring up something small that hurt you, and suddenly you're calming them down. You mention a boundary, and they act wounded, shot, misunderstood, or personally attacked right away. Now you're comforting the person who crossed the line instead of protecting yourself. That drain you feel is the cost of emotional labor you never agreed to perform daily. A healthy person may not love your honesty, but they can stay with it. A toxic person turns your truth into a problem you now have to fix. Think about the parent who says after one small limit, "I guess I'm terrible now." Or the partner who sighs, goes cold, and makes the whole evening about your tone. Or the friend who says they were just trying to help while punishing you. Notice what happened there. You didn't get heard. You got recruited into repair duty. The phrase for this moment is short. That doesn't work for me. Then stop talking. Let the silence expose who expected unlimited access to your emotional energy. Sign 2 is when simple conversations leave you feeling confused instead of connected or understood. You answer a direct question and somehow end up defending things you never said. They twist the wording, skip the context, then react to the distortion they created. You leave thinking, maybe I did come off wrong, maybe I was unfair. But the real issue is that clarity disappears whenever accountability gets close. Confusion is useful to controlling people because confused people explain more, apologize faster, and yield. That's why some conversations feel like quicksand. The more you explain, the deeper you sink. A boss does this when you mention workload, and suddenly you're discussing your attitude instead. A sibling does this when you ask for respect, and they accuse you of drama. A fake friend does this when confronted, then says you're remembering everything all wrong. Your move here is not better explaining. Your move is refusing the false trial. Say, "I already answered that," or "My answer is the same here." Then go quiet. Do not rescue the silence just because they look offended. Sign 3 is hidden information gathering disguised as care, concern, curiosity, closeness, or fake support. They ask personal questions, push for details, then later use those details against you. Or they collect your struggles so they can feel important, superior, or informed. At first it feels intimate. Later it feels invasive, exposed, and weirdly unsafe. Because real care protects your vulnerability. Manipulation stores it for later leverage and social use. You tell a coworker something private, and suddenly the office mood around you changes. You tell a family member you're struggling, and weeks later they use it. They call it concern. But concern doesn't make you regret being honest. That's the difference. Healthy interest respects your pace. Toxic interest hunts for access. You do not owe full transparency to people who have not earned emotional trust. A simple line here is, "I'm keeping that private," or "I'm still figuring it out." No apology. No nervous laugh. No over-explaining your right to keep your own information. Sign 4 is punishment after a boundary, especially sudden coldness, distance, attitude, or public sweetness. No screaming, no direct threat, just a shift that makes the room feel hostile. They answer slower, act clipped, withdraw warmth, or suddenly become publicly nice and privately sharp. That is not always space. Sometimes it is punishment disguised as distance. Here's the nuance people need. Silence itself isn't toxic. Intent is what matters. Healthy silence creates room to cool down, reflect, and return respectfully later. Manipulative silence wants you anxious, chasing, apologizing, and willing to drop the boundary. That's why you feel drained before they even say anything. Your body reads consequences. You said no to a favor, and now your mother sounds icy for days. You told your boss you're unavailable after work, and now their messages feel pointed. You declined one last-minute request, and your friend suddenly acts like you've changed. Sometimes you have changed. You stopped being easy to use without resistance. That's not cruelty. That's growth finally making their old strategy less effective. The line here is, I'm not discussing this, or simply, not this time anymore. Then keep your tone flat and your body still. Calm frustrates control more than anger. Sign 5 is the biggest one. You leave feeling guilty for having needs at all. Not because you were cruel. Not because you lied. Just because you finally took up space. This is the deepest drain of all, because it attacks your right to exist comfortably. They trained you to associate self-respect with selfishness, distance with betrayal, and limits with guilt. So every boundary feels morally wrong, even when it's completely reasonable and necessary. You say no to lending money, and somehow spend the night feeling like a villain. You stop answering draining calls, and then feel mean while finally breathing again. You refuse to explain yourself for the 10th time, and then question your character. That's not your conscience warning you. That's conditioning panicking because the old role is ending. And this is where weak advice fails people badly. Just communicate better is not enough. You can speak perfectly and still get punished by someone invested in misunderstanding you. Sometimes the problem is not expression. Sometimes the problem is their benefit from your confusion. That's why strategy matters more than sincerity in certain relationships, especially repeated, unhealthy, manipulative ones. Not every difficult person is toxic, and that distinction matters. Some people are just limited. Emotionally immature people may react badly without plotting every move. They still drain you. And even if their behavior comes from insecurity, you still need protection. You do not need to prove evil intent before taking your peace seriously. You are allowed to respond to patterns, not just dramatic incidents alone. If 5 small conversations leave you foggy, tense, and guilty, that's real information. You don't need a courtroom. You need clarity, pattern recognition, a plan, and steady follow-through. So what does the plan look like when you can't just disappear? First, shorten access. Draining people do more damage with long conversations than short ones. Stop giving full explanations, full histories, and full emotional access to unsafe people. The more material you hand them, the more angles they have to twist. Second, answer the actual question once, then refuse the rerun. Repetition is a trap. If they circle back, say, I already answered that, and do not decorate it. Third, stop confusing access with closeness. Some people know a lot about you, yet care little. Real closeness feels safe after honesty, not exposed, shaky, embarrassed, or strategically naked. Fourth, watch what happens after the boundary, not during the speech itself. Their reaction tells you whether the issue was the request or their lost access. Healthy people may need a minute, but they don't build a revenge mood. Toxic people act like your limit injured them because leverage just got removed. Fifth, believe your body sooner. Exhaustion is often information before your mind slowly catches up. If you feel lighter when they cancel, that matters more than their charming image. If your stomach drops when their name appears, that is data, not drama. If you rehearse basic conversations beforehand, your system is expecting distortion, guilt, or punishment. The goal is not becoming cold. The goal is becoming harder to manipulate and easier to trust. You can stay kind and still become brief, clear, selective, and unavailable for nonsense. In fact, calm boundaries are often kinder than fake peace. Fake peace breeds resentment. When you over-explain to avoid conflict, you usually create more openings for control. When you say less, manipulative people have less to work with, less to weaponize. That is why one calm sentence can protect you better than 10 honest paragraphs. I'm not available for. That is stronger than a speech about your schedule. We are not doing. This is stronger than proving, again, that you meant well. My answer is the same. Protects your energy from people who live on emotional reruns. No is complete. Not this time is complete. Silence afterward can be complete too. And if that feels rude, ask who taught you that self-protection requires permission. The people who benefit from your exhaustion will always call your recovery selfish. Because your peace exposes how much of the relationship depended on your overfunctioning. That's why backlash can actually be clarifying. Anger often means they lost convenience. Guilt trips often mean they lost access. Smear campaigns often mean private control failed. Silent treatment often means punishment. Fake concern often means information gathering. You changed means resistance. That translation alone can save you years of second-guessing and emotional debt. Because one's behavior has meaning, it stops feeling like mysterious weather in your life. You stop begging confusing people to clarify what their patterns already made obvious. You stop twisting yourself into the nicest possible shape just to avoid punishment. You stop treating exhaustion like a character flaw instead of a relationship warning. And maybe most importantly, you stop volunteering for roles that were quietly destroying you. You do not have to become cruel to stop being easy. You just become unavailable. That difference matters, because control says comply or be punished, while boundaries say, this is mine. A boundary tells you what I will do. Control tells you what you must do. So if someone calls your limit controlling, listen closely to what they lost. Usually it was convenience, emotional access, or the ability to set the emotional temperature. And when that ability disappears, some people panic and call the panic love. But love does not require your exhaustion. Care does not demand your confusion, guilt, or shrinking. Respect does not need you guilty, foggy, careful, and chronically prepared for backlash. The right relationships may challenge you sometimes, but they do not drain your identity. They let you stay whole while being honest. That is how safety feels. And once you know that feeling, you stop negotiating with people who erase it. You were never weak for feeling drained. You were responding to friction, pressure, and control. Your exhaustion was not proof that you couldn't handle people. It was an affirmation. And once you see that clearly, your job is not to convince them. Your job is to protect your clarity, your energy, and your self-respect every time. So think about the person who always leaves you tired, guilty, foggy, or tense. Which sign shows up first with them? Which phrase do you need most? Start there. Try one calm sentence this week and watch what the reaction reveals. If this put words to something you've been carrying, say it in the comments. And if you want more clarity like this, stay close. Protecting your peace changes everything.